Well, the people of France are out in the streets for a second weekend in a row, rising up against Macron's dictatorial vaccine mandate, which, again, he's scooting out on weasel words a little bit, saying, well, it's not technically a mandate because you can just submit to, being tested at your own expense. But hey, if you don't get tested at your own expense and you're caught in public, we throw you in jail for 6 months. And again, this is just a quick review. If you're caught at a private business, the business owner gets to go to jail for a year too. So they're incentivizing people to rat on each other with very harsh consequences. And so we're seeing a step in that direction here in the United States. We're seeing very similar things in principle, just on a smaller scale. They are taking the same tact, really, here. Biden, and Biden himself is a composite of all of these various different corporate interests. But let's just say the blob here in America is doing the same thing as Macron, saying, hey, you either need to get vaxxed or you can submit to mandatory tests every day, pretty much, to the point to where it's totally inconvenient and you're forced to go get yourself jabbed. But right now in the United States, it's just limited to government and corporate employees, because these are the people in America who are the least independent. They're the least able to fight back, and so it's easiest to push it on them. And they also tend to be a bit more Democratic leaning. I won't say left leaning, that's not really the right term, but they tend to be more aligned with the good Democratic Party. If you are just a cog in the wheel at a big corporation, or if you're a government employee, and that's kind of for obvious reasons, because it kind of sucks to be a cog in the wheel at a corporate entity like Walmart or Amazon, and so you tend to have more anti-capitalist sentiments. You have a more anti-capitalist mentality because you just think of yourself as getting stomped on and you think there's no way to get ahead, whereas people who work in small businesses or own small businesses tend to be much more aspirational. They want to succeed in life, they want to grow, and so they tend to be more pro-capitalist. And then you've got government workers who just, it's in their self-interest to have people in office. Even though the Republicans never cut anything, the Republicans kind of talk about cutting the budget sometimes, and so that can be be not great for job security. If you're a government employee, if there's a Democrat in office, your job is guaranteed, and you might even get a raise. And so because this is a Democratic-leaning group that they're mandating the vaccines for now, it's not that big of a stretch to mandate vaccines for them, because most of them probably already had it anyway. The only folks you're going to have to fire are a few holdout right-wingers that for some reason are still working at Walmart or in the federal government. That just there's not a whole lot of a population there that's going to resist this. But in France, we're seeing the same thing, but on a much broader scale, applied equally to all citizens. This is the government coming right out and saying, hey, you all got to get vaccinated. It's not your choice, not your body, your choice. It's your body, Emmanuel Macron's choice, and he's making that choice for you. The Biden administration has made it clear that they are moving in that direction. That's what we saw this week. This was the first step. That's why I made, my title of the video a couple days ago might seem a little provocative. Vaccine mandates are here. Because you'd say, well, they're limited. It's not like everybody has to get a vaccine. Well, you will soon. The DOJ, Biden already has said, is looking into the legality of the federal government mandating this on the individual level. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is the federal government is going to mandate this through state and local governments by withholding funds. The same way that the federal government instituted a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit in all 50 states, even though everybody said, why? We just want to drive 70 or 75. We think that's much better to drive that fast. And the federal government said, no, you're going to drive 55 or we're going to withhold your highway funding. And so the same thing is going to happen with the vaccines. It's going to be, you're going to tell folks, hey, either you mandate the vaccine or you lose a bunch of federal money. And so a month ago, I wouldn't have said this was coming. I was going to say, I would have thought, gee, so many people are going to voluntarily get the vaccine. They have no reason to try and compel people. It just didn't make sense to me. I thought that the cost benefit just didn't work out. And it still doesn't. It's still stupid to mandate the vaccine, because all you're going to do is make the people who don't have it that much more opposed to it. If you tell them, no, you have to, because then people think, well, gee, if you're forcing me to get it, there must be some reason why you feel like you have to do that, why you can't just convince me. I must be onto something. There must be something really wrong here if you have to force me to get the vaccine. And it's going to be even tougher to make that case. Actually, it's impossible to make it logically, although there wasn't much logic to this all along. Now that the CDC is coming out and saying that vaccinated people spread the virus just as much as unvaccinated people. If that's the case, then getting a vaccine in no way protects people around you, according to the CDC. That's not my opinion. That's the CDC's opinion. And so the legal justification for mandating that someone would get a vaccine would be that, they're a threat to other people around them, and that you're a threat to the public. And so therefore you have to get the vaccine in order to protect other people. That's the idea. That was the whole idea behind mask mandates too. Remember that? Oh, you're protecting other people when you wear a mask. Even though it's nonsense. Even N95s, we found out, were insufficient for blocking these virus particles. So in that case, they don't, there's no logical basis for mandating the vaccine, and they don't care anymore. That's why they're moving to the mandate. It is just supposed to be, hardline authoritarianism. And so I'm glad to see the people of France rising up against this. I don't think it'll be enough. It's going, it's a minority now. It's going to be a minority. I don't think that they're going to be successful. If anywhere would succeed, it would be here in the U.S., but I think that we have our federal system has incentivized certain governors, to take the opposite political position on this, opposite from Washington. I think that most red states even are going to go along with this. I mean, you look at the governor of Alabama, looks like a total idiot. That crazy old woman who just sits at home watching the news all day, scared to death, going on TV and saying, "Oh, you unvaccinated people, you're the reason why the virus is spreading around." Now the CDC comes out a week later, totally not true, but she doesn't care. She's going to go along with a vaccine mandate if the federal government starts pushing that onto state. It puts any pressure on the states at all. She's going to just go, "Oh well, they twisted my arm. I have no choice but to mandate everyone in the state of Alabama get vaccinated." But Florida, at the very least, we're going to avoid that. That's not happening here, I'm glad to say. Texas seems pretty good on this. Abbott seems like he wants to win re-election, so he's not going to go off the reservation on this one. But honestly, other than that, I don't know of any states that I would say for certain you're not going to definitely will not see vaccine mandates based on how quickly, because something they understand about the Biden administration is that it's very Eurocentric. Build Back Better is a slogan from the World Economic Forum. That should tell you a lot about who's running who's in the Biden orbit. It's those kinds of people. It's people like Emmanuel Macron. And so there you have Emmanuel Macron come out and make his declaration. It's very hardline. And, just a week or two later, you have Biden come out and make the same declaration, but on a much smaller scale, saying, "Oh, well, I'm only going to do this with federal employees. Oh, but except for the postal workers, because the Postal Workers Union doesn't want it." And then corporate America comes in following in lockstep. And most Republican governors in this country are total shills for corporate America. They worship at their feet, no matter how much money these corporations give to Democrats, no matter how much these corporations promote left-wing social values. Republican governors worship them and will do anything to gain their approval. Think about Walmart, based in Arkansas. Arkansas, even though they voted for Trump by 63%, I think, is how much vote Trump won there. That state, in all likelihood, going to have a vaccine mandate. Asa Hutchinson, the governor there, he vetoed a Second Amendment sanctuary law because he said, "Oh, that's terrible. Guns are bad." and this is a deep red state, but he loves Walmart. Walmart is by far the biggest interest group in the state of Arkansas. Walmart is mandating all their employees get vaccinated. Soon, Walmart is going to mandate all their customers get vaccinated. You look at a place like South Dakota. That South Dakota woman's been a big anti-lockdowner. Well, is she going to be labeled an anti-vaxxer by corporate America? I don't think so. She has been another one who is, even if she might have been good on the lockdown thing initially, even before DeSantis was, I'll give her credit for that. She's still a corporate shill. And so that's really the genius of the Biden administration, using corporate America as cutouts for their policy. If they just get corporate America to adopt the policies that the federal government would like to implement across the country and impose upon the entire population, all of a sudden the Republican Party says, what the hell? We love these policies because the corporations are for them. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these red state governors, because again, red state Republicans are by far the worst. At least in swing states, you have Republicans who have to be a little bit more rough and tumble in order to get elected. They have to fight their way to power a little more. These red state governors who are handed everything, some of the worst human beings on the planet. Would not be surprised to see them call in the National Guard to enforce vaccine mandates, just like we're seeing in Australia with their new lockdown. I guess they'd call it the Premier of New South Wales, I believe, is the one who has the authority to do this, called in the Australian Army. Said, nope, the police are overwhelmed with all these people who want to just live normal lives. We need to send in the tanks. So I guess what's new is I hadn't until today made the connection, until I saw what was going on in France, and I thought again about the situation in France, and I thought about what's going on here this week. I realized this is the same thing. We're following the same script. France is just further along than we are. And so this is coming. Now, France doesn't have a federal system. They're incredibly centralized. The federal government, or the central government of France, terrible, terrible system. The French Revolution was a horrible mistake. And part of the consequences of the French Revolution is that they don't have really any way to push back on the president. We here in the U.S., with what decentralization we still have in our system, we do have some ability to push back on the central authority. So when the time comes, hopefully there will still be pockets of freedom in the U.S., but things are escalating very quickly. Oh, and I forgot to mention, what's his name? Jack Posobiec. He gets some interesting leaks sometimes. I don't talk about a lot of his stuff because they are just leaks. They could be total BS, but I've seen a lot of stuff of his that seem pretty legit and reasonable. I don't think that I don't think that he just makes stuff up. I think that he is getting people who's actually feeding him the stuff. And so I think it was on Thursday, he tweeted out that one of his White House sources was talking about how the White House is gearing up for a national vaccine mandate. How they're going to implement it seemed a little unclear. It might be by trying to coerce the states into doing it. It might be trying to just blanket at the federal level, mandate people do this. I don't think that's going to fly with the DOJ. But anyway, they were planning that second week of August, late in the week. And so that timeline makes sense to me. It is giving time to gear up for this. We are starting the process right now, and they're going to escalate in that direction. So I guess that's a prediction that I'm making. I'll have to stand by that. I'll have to address it if I'm wrong, but I don't think I will be. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.